With an update on a lawsuit against WWE and more, this is Wrestling Hub. My name is John and you're watching the Wrestling Report. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. Touching on potentially giving advice to WWE talent despite his move to AEW, Adam Copeland told the Masked Man show, generally what I'll do if it's something that I saw, I'm like, that's a good point that I can tell them. Usually I'll go back and rewatch everything without like talking to Eddie Kingston while we're watching. Usually I'll sit home and properly watch something before I really dive into it because I don't want to half-ass it. I want to make sure that I'm telling points that I saw and felt and take it for what it's worth. It's not one of those guys that's like, listen to what I say, damn it. You have to have that filter as to who you trust as a person you go in terms of advice. I've always said I'm wide open to anybody, and that still holds true to talent in WWE, and they know that. On his Click This podcast, Kevin Nash said this about AEW's ability to compete with WWE. They're so good at packages, like the Peacock thing they did on Cody. If they want to get you over, they can make it feel like a 30 for 30 ESPN special. They can also make it feel like what this guy is doing is absolutely legitimate. They have that ability. To me, it's just like AEW is the Staples Center. It's a new arena, and it's got all the bells and whistles, but all of a sudden, WWE just decides we're going to do our shows in the Sphere. We're just going to do our show in the Sphere now. That's just the way it is. It's always going to be that way. You're never going to compete with that, especially with 17 people in the staff. Taking to Instagram, Matt Riddle, seen with his pregnant girlfriend Misha Montana, showed off a recent purchase that he made as he bought a car. Yesterday, Braun Strowman, who was out of action from WWE due to an injury, could be seen hanging out with the late Bray Wyatt's children, as Alexi Offerman, JoJo Offerman's mother, wrote, "My G babies had fun this weekend so far, from Disney Junior concert to meeting up with Uncle Braun for early dinner. Thank you, Braun Strowman, for the love on Wyndham's babies." Revealing that he wants to have a similar look to The Undertaker, Karrion Kross told Chris Van Vliet, "Eventually, my hair is going to grow so long that it's going to take over the earth. That's the plan. That's pretty long. I think I want to grow my hair maybe to like Taker 98 length." I always thought that was a really cool period in his career, and that whole vibe, that whole look was awesome. And yeah, I was telling you initially I was supposed to do the film. We never finished it. Held off like a bunch of things that went wrong. We never got to it. I just decided to keep my hair. Mentioning WWE's plans for a Smackdown season premiere, the Wrestling Observer newsletter noted the October 13th Smackdown is billed as the new season opener. Normally that would be the first show in October, but they were waiting until after the pay-per-view for Reigns returning, plus a special appearance by Triple H making an announcement. The only match announced was the return of Pretty Deadly versus Butch and Holland. Elton Price was injured, taking a pounce from Holland and landing on his shoulder, so they are playing it up that Holland was the one who hurt him. Rhodes and Jey Uso will also defend the tag titles in an open challenge. As AEW president, Tony Khan took shots at WWE and specifically The Undertaker and John Cena for being on NXT and not getting a million views, the Wrestling Observer newsletter said. Khan noted that the no million tweet was a response to the endless people who tweeted him every Thursday. After the show does usually the top one or two numbers of the previous night, but that's considered bad because they don't hit 1 million viewers. There was also a strategic message in posting in the sense that 1 million post came at the same time he released the Jay White vs. Penta match for next week, with the idea that the post would lead to more engagement for the announcement of that match. Those in WWE did contact us very quickly after that post, with the idea that it was like they saw it as a declaration of war by still discussing the subject. Of course, that declaration really dates back to January 2019. Staying on this topic, Booker T said this on his Hall of Fame podcast regarding the shot Tony Khan took at The Undertaker and John Cena's appearance on NXT. One guy I try not to dig at is Tony Khan because he's a guy trying to run a business, but at the same time, I gotta take a dig at this last comment that he made about the NXT rating. He said it was the first time that John Cena and The Undertaker appeared in front of less than 1 million people for WWE, and the thing is, he's got Edge and Christian and all of those guys. So it's like, when you say stuff like that, you might want to think about it before you say stuff like that, because Edge was in the main event. Edge was in the main event of that show and they pulled 609,000 viewers. The thing is, I'm sure Tony Khan thought that that was going to be a bigger number. I can't be positive on this, but I can imagine that Tony Khan would have thought that AEW Dynamite would have gotten a bigger number. I don't know what Tony Khan's modus operandi is. I don't know what his fixation on WWE is, but I've said this once, I'll say it 1,000 times. Tony Khan got a hell of a product. He's got a hell of a thing going, but I really think that just like WCW, they focused on WWE, everything they were doing. They were trying to counter program every Monday night. What are they doing? And I really think that WCW thought themselves right out of the war because they were focused on winning and beating WWE when they had a hell of a product already. Giving a status update on NXT star Wes Lee following his loss of the North American title. It was said that after his defeat, Wes Lee headed back to the locker room. It seemed that he might be parting ways with the company as he collected his belongings, cleared out his locker room, and departed. Ringside News reached out to a tenured member of the WWE creative team to inquire about a couple of names that have been rumored to be on their way to the main roster. After all, a couple popular NXT superstars are in positions where a main roster call-up could make sense. Ringside News reached out to ask about Wes Lee's possible main roster call-up. We were told that the WWE creative team has not been approached about Wes Lee's potential call-up. No ideas have been tossed around either. Going over the possibility of an NXT call-up to the WWE main roster for Joe Gacy, it was said that Ringside News reached out to ask about any plan to bring Joe Gacy up to the main roster. We were told that his name has come up, but not in any conversation about a call-up at this point. His name has been mentioned for other reasons like a roster review. At this time, we've been told that nothing of consequence has been discussed for Joe Gacy at this time. He is still listed as an NXT superstar, so fans will just have to see what's next for him. With it announced that Davey Boy Smith Jr. had to withdraw from an event, he revealed the reason why on Instagram, writing, "I wanted to inform everyone officially I needed to have emergency surgery late last night for appendicitis plus appendix removal to find out it was diverticulitis as well. I have had part of colon removed with some of my appendix as well for the procedure. Folks, this was one of the most painful experiences of my life, but I'm glad I got it done. A burst appendix can lead to serious complications too. I'm sad to announce my withdrawal from the Major League Wrestling World Title match versus Alex Kane this weekend in Philadelphia as well. Hopefully I can get this same opportunity in the future when I'm back healthy. And so sorry to my fans, these things happen and was not something I ever want to endure again. Trust me, that was a 12 out of 10 in the pain scale. I'm in stable condition now, but I am still in immense pain. I'll keep everything posted with updates. Thanks for everyone reaching out to me also." Revealing his contract status with AEW, Kota Ibushi said this in an interview with HD Subs. "They asked me how we could come to a deal. I said unless it has these conditions, I don't want to sign a contract. That was the hardcore match, double ring, cage. That's the day we signed the contract. We had a verbal agreement. I'm based in Japan and I will travel for the matches. Basically, I'm in Japan. I work in Japan. I will be active. There are other things that make the contract even more flexible, like I could appear for other promotions." Giving an update on the lawsuit against WWE over racial discrimination, which was brought forward by a former member of the creative team, Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics, noted former WWE writer Brittany Abrams' racial discrimination and wrongful termination lawsuit against WWE has been voluntarily dismissed. Abrams in August voluntarily dismissed the case against named defendants including Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, and members of the WWE creative team, but the complaint against the company remained until today. The dismissal is with prejudice, meaning the case can't be tried again in the same court. Noting the creative situation at WWE without Vince McMahon being a part of the process, the Wrestling Observer newsletter stated, regarding the creative process, right now Paul Levesque is the person in charge. He's the one making all of the key decisions. Bruce Pritchard is a conduit between creative, talent relations, and talent services. Ed Koski is the operations person who keeps the scripts flowing. At the moment, Vince McMahon is out of the creative process, but it was stressed to me the term "at the moment." McMahon is still the person in charge of the company with the most power, but Levesque is running creative and Nick Khan is making the business moves. And this was your pro wrestling news update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later.